You're listening to Brave Girls with Tracy M., where we choose to empower you to be a better leader, mentor, and coach in the world. We'll share stories of people who have achieved great heights by overcoming adversity and rising to the challenge, all while pursuing their passions. These courageous people will inspire you to have faith in yourself and take bold action. Right here with the host of Brave Girls, Tracy M.
Episode 4, Follow the Call of the Way with Debby Kevin. On this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M., meet my smart, funny, and adventurous colleague, Debby Kevin. We talk about her life as a military kid and how always being the new girl was actually a gift where she learned to believe in herself. Raised by her grandparents, she talks about her experience and how it shaped who she is today. In college, she trained as an accountant and spent many years in the corporate world, crunching numbers and auditing financial statements. 8 years ago, she left the corporate world and now helps others tell their stories and shape their personal brands as a writer, editor, and book coach. Not only does Deborah believe in herself, but she continues to invest in herself through working with coaches and mentors. She continues to live her truth and has stepped into who she really is as a brave girl. Her courage is amazing, and she's a real light in the world today. We talk about her desire to walk the Camino and what she's learned as a result of pursuing her dream and answering the call of the way. She now taps into her intuition on a regular basis and listens to the signals she receives. This summer, she'll be walking more of the Camino, and we wish her luck. Deborah also shares her very personal story about what she's learned as a result of her son Jack's diagnosis of being on the autism spectrum and how she trained herself to help him succeed. She attributes much of her personal growth to being a single mom to her sons Cooper and Jack. I hope you enjoy this episode. So here's Debby Kevin.
So welcome to Brave Girls with Tracy M. Today I have Debby Kevin, someone who I've known for many, many years back in the day. She is just smart, funny, adventurous, and personable. That is how I always remember her. And she's doing great work out in the world today. And so I just want to welcome you, Deborah, to the show.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I guess when I first met you, you were very much a left-brained person working in a department with lots of men, and now you are very much a right-brained kind of gal, working with female entrepreneurs. So what a change in what I think is kind of relatively a short period of time. So do tell.
Yeah, so that's a great observation. In fact, I went to college for accounting, and as you know, I started out where we worked together as an auditor, went through Six Sigma training, fell into change management, which I loved. And that was really when I first started exploring the idea of communication in a formal way. So I'd always been the person wherever I worked who started the newsletter and ran the newsletter, and people would run their emails by them, or I would be the person that would help them reframe what they were thinking or get clarity. So I've always had this right brain, left brain thing going. But when I left corporate, it's already been 8 years.
Wow.
I had the opportunity to explore a different part of me. And that was when I really went after creative writing and really focused in on creating and developing that side of my brain and integrating. So I kind of am this secret weapon, because I not only can help people tell their stories, but I can see the bigger picture and all the steps to get them to publication or to launch or whatever.
Right. And so a lot of what you're doing now is not only are you an editor for publications, but you're a copywriter, you're a book writing coach, you've got workshops on blogging, and I know you mentioned to me you're starting a small group program to coach basically entrepreneurs to take their business to the next level. So you've really created a lot of different product offerings. Like what types of projects more specifically do you work on with your clients? I mean, I know it's kind of all over the map and it's kind of changed over the 8 years.
Yeah, so I think primarily I say I always work with their words. So it could be someone who's, done a DIY website and now they're ready to make some investment in, creating a brand or branding themselves. And that's when we come in. I'll usually end up working with a graphic designer. I'll do the words, and the design is actually built around my words, which is can be a little nerve-wracking. The first time I did that, I'm like, wait a minute, I thought I'd write to the design, but no, it's the other way around. So that gives me a lot of flexibility in terms of, being creative to capture people's voices. So I do that. There are some of my clients who have books where they have a whole lot of raw notes and we'll pull them into a book. And so there's really the editing, publishing process. Some of my clients want to write a book, but don't really understand, or it feels too big. So we break it down into a blog. So you mentioned I help people with their blogs, and I don't just help people write their blogs. I help business owners write a blog that is client attractive and is very focused, so that at the end of a year, they have enough blog posts and material for a book. So then we take that to the next level. I help people even just get clarity on what their stories are. So for example, I was working with a client recently who has a very compelling personal story. She lived very much in her striving masculine energy and burned out, nearly died, and realized that she needed to do something different. And her story is much too compelling for me to share it. But long and short is just we meet weekly to talk about the story. We edit it. We talk about the craft of story writing, because whether you're doing fiction or nonfiction, you really need to have, all the elements of good story. And then one of the last things that I do is I really help people integrate their stories, because it's real easy to do what I call the Facebook highlight reel to the world. But until you really get clear about your strengths and your challenges and show up fully as yourself, you're really just a cardboard cutout, and people don't want to work with cardboard cutouts.
Wow, I think that's so true. Yeah, and I know part of your backstory is that your dad was in the military and that you guys moved around a lot. And your bio says you attended 13 schools in 12 years, which is overwhelming. I mean, that you went through that kind of cycle of always being the new girl. So what did that really teach you, and how have you kind of brought it forward into the work that you're doing today?
That's a great, great question. And it's funny because as a kid, of course, I dreaded being the new girl. I was so incredibly shy. I mean, I'm an introvert naturally anyway, but incredibly shy. And one thing that I did that I still am kind of shocked about was in 10th grade, I decided I was just done being invisible. Because I was very good at blending in and being invisible and quiet. And I just kind of was like, this doesn't work for me anymore. And not knowing anyone, I threw myself into running for class officer. And my whole platform was based upon, you don't know me, I don't know you, I've been around and I bring some new ideas. And damned if I didn't get elected.
Of course you did.
And I was treasurer my first year, and then I was vice president my senior year. But that really was, I think that snippet is really defines who I am as a person, is that I'm kind of unafraid to take risks. And I'm not like a double black diamond ski kind of risk or a bungee jumper, but I think I believe in myself. And because I believe in myself, I take that, then I believe in my clients. And I help create a safe space for them to explore everything that they're trying to say. But I also encourage them to go deeper and to show up. Because I know that being invisible is no way to live one's life. And So sometimes you have to just take risks.
Right. Well, and I'm sure that all of those moves taught you resilience as well. And that I'm assuming has led to you being as adventurous as you are. And I know you set a personal goal that you wanted to walk the entire Camino, and that I guess it was last year you hiked or walked 80 miles of it, and that this fall you're going to walk even more. So talk about that and what's behind that. And, you know, my understanding is it's a very spiritual experience.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. So, you know, I would say when I saw this movie called The Way, and it just really struck me, this movie, to the point where I saw it by myself, and then I made my children watch it, and I'm like, I got to do this. I got to do this. And they say that the way calls you. The Camino de Santiago de Compostela is really called the way, and it's the way of St. James is what it literally translates to. And it's these various pilgrim paths throughout Europe that lead all to Santiago, Spain, which is where St. James is buried. And I don't know that I have the exact answer yet why I'm called, but I will say that going away for a week and walking for 5 days through the beautiful French countryside last spring, in the silence and the disconnected from the outside world, the only decision I had to make every day was, what did I want for lunch? You know, the meals were all planned, where we were staying was planned. And there was such a freedom. I actually came back feeling like the things that I owned me, and I was feeling very weighted down. So I've been going through this process of purging ever since. And it's I can't tell you why yet, but I do know that I feel called to it, and it's a very strong calling.
That's interesting. Yeah, and you know, there's such power in decluttering and creating that space for something new to enter, or even nothing to enter, right?
And if you're too full, you can't receive, right? If your hands are too full, so you've got all this stuff, there's not room for more to come in. And that's what I've discovered is, as I've been purging, you know, I've been getting, you know, I'm pretty intuitive, and I'll get a lot of signs that I'm on the right track, or I'll get, you know, I'll make space, you know, getting rid of old files, and then suddenly I have new clients to fill other files. And so there's just this lovely sense of freedom.
Definitely. And I think as women, sometimes we either ignore our intuition or stuff it down, or just really don't pay much mind to the signs that the universe maybe is sending us. So I think that's great that you know you have strong intuition, and you're just listening and going with it, because
yeah, I would say I didn't always, though. So I've always known I've had strong intuition, but there was a time, probably for 20 years, that I stuffed it down. I didn't trust myself, and that didn't serve me well. Because when I look back, you know, hindsight 2020, I see, you know, my intuition on certain situations was spot on, and I subjugated it to other people's feelings and intuition. And I would say that I think one of the gifts of the Camino actually was just being very aware and looking and listening. And I don't ignore it anymore. And I get very strong signals.
Mm-hmm. That's great. The other thing that I've always admired in you is that as long as I've known you, you've always invested in yourself, in that, like you said, you believe in yourself, you have confidence in yourself, and you've been through so much personally and professionally. And I've seen, just watching your greatest kind of leaps and jumps when you've invested in, whether it was think you went to Stanford's writing program.
I did. Mm-hmm.
And then, you've worked with very high level mindset coaches, as you've kind of clarified your entrepreneurial offers, and your gifts that you're able to share with people. And then, now you have all these client testimonials of all these projects basically that you've worked on over the last 8 years. So I just admire that you're living your truth and that you've stepped into who you really are. But yet you haven't forgotten your left brain training and methodology and your business acumen and all of that. The other thing I know, you're a mom, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about your mom journey and, things with Jack and Cooper. So tell us a little bit about Jack and Cooper.
Oh my gosh. Well, of course, being a parent is the ultimate journey. We were fortunate. Most of the time I was a parent, I've actually been a single parent. And from the time my children were 6 months old and 2, which I don't know how I made it through those years. Like, they look at me and they're like, what were your days like? And I mean, seriously, they were a blur of diapers and daycare and,
Mm-hmm.
one getting sick, the other getting sick, me getting sick. But what it gave me was the opportunity to show up in a way that felt like it honored my own desire to be a parent. Because I didn't have what I would call a great childhood in terms of traditional parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really important to me. So I waited a long time to become a parent. And honestly, I've grown more as a person and a human being because of my children. So Cooper is a sophomore at Temple University. He's an amazing vocalist, but even more so, he's a very kind person. He's got a really great head on his shoulders, and I couldn't be more proud of the person that he is.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been kind ever since he was a little guy. He has just this innate sense of caring. And my Jack is going off to college in the fall, and his journey, I think truthfully, Jack is on the autism spectrum, and I will say that the gift of his autism, and I say it because I feel very firmly that he was given to me not only to help him to achieve his own dreams, but to grow me as a person. And so that's how I got off the corporate treadmill at all, was because of he was diagnosed, and it was a really rough time. But he's one of the most courageous people I've ever known. And the fact that he's going off to college and he's going to live at college, and he has very specific dreams. He's a little entrepreneur as well. They're cool people.
That's great. That's all you can hope for.
Yeah.
That's all you can hope for, is that you did the best that you could with what you had as a single mom, and you've been behind them all the way and made sacrifices so that they could become who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know that when Jack got diagnosed, it was probably, I don't even know what you went through. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it was a pretty tough, it wasn't a standard journey. I had very clear feelings about how I wanted him to feel about himself. And many of the traditional methods that I was coming up against and investigating, people would talk in front of him as though he weren't even there, and as if he couldn't understand. And I just had to say, no, we're not doing that. And so my Six Sigma and change management all kicked in, and I love to research. And so that's what I ended up doing. And ultimately we created a program, kind of cobbling together all of these different programs that people came to us. I became certified in all kinds of things. And I worked with providers who really had this same sense of he's not broken. I mean, I remember just this heartbreaking question from the back seat, we had therapy 5 days a week, a different therapist. And one day after several months of this, Jack said in a little voice from the back seat, "Mommy, am I broken?" And that I was like sobbing, right? Trying to keep my tears to myself. But, there was no way I wanted him to feel that way. So that's why I ultimately left corporate and spent a couple of years really building a program for him to succeed.
Yeah, because that was probably in his formative years that if you would have not made that choice, it could have gone in any number of directions.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that's probably why he is going to college, because you believed in him and told him he's not broken. Mm-hmm. And maybe some of the traditional methods weren't the right methods for your child. So
right.
Kudos to you for, trusting your gut.
I did trust my gut big time. I mean, it was not an easy time, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just, I love what you're doing in the world. I love watching you blossom like in front of me. I just get so inspired when I see your Facebook post and I read things that are on your blog, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there she is kayaking, there she is hiking. Like, I just love that you just, it's like life can change in an instant, and you just have said, this is who I am and this is how I'm going to show up in the world.
Yeah, it's funny. I've done a little bit of thinking about that, because sometimes I worry. The perception for people is that I'm always traveling. Lovely perception, by the way. Not true. But I do. And it comes back to, I'll tell a little story. My grandfather was, my brother and I were raised by our grandparents, essentially. And my grandfather was a World War II vet. He was in Pearl Harbor when Pearl Harbor was attacked. He was in the Battle of Midway, and his job was a medic. So he would run out onto the field of battle in the heat of the battle and retrieve people who were injured or dead or dying. So he had this, what he must have seen in those experiences obviously changed him. So he's retired by the time we go to live with them. And I remember him just sitting on the couch, and he would watch World at War, so he was reliving it every single day. He was wonderful to me. I didn't know until years later that he was a raging alcoholic. I just never saw it myself. And he had a stroke the year that, between my junior and senior year of high school. And very quick strokes, rapid. And the last thing that he wrote before he could no longer write was that he wanted me to come visit him. And I was living with another grandparent. And so I had to borrow a car and get up to the hospital to see him. And I remember sitting next to him, and he could hold my hand and maybe grip it a little bit, but his eyes were so intense, like he wanted me to know something. He couldn't speak. He had no language. And the doctor came in, and my grandmother closed, that little curtain, right? And I could hear them talking. And the doctor said, I've never seen anyone with such a will to live. He should be dead by now. And I remember in that instant looking at him and just feeling such anger that he'd spent so many years on the couch when he could have been living. And that really struck me so deeply that I decided in that moment that was not going to be my story. I was going to live. I was going to say yes to things. I was going to, if I wanted to try it, I was going to try it. And, I've been very fortunate that the opportunities that have come to me as a result of that kind of joie de vivre, I feel lucky.
Right. And I think just kind of going back even to what you were saying about your belongings were weighing you down and letting them go so new things can come in. I think your level of gratitude for all your blessings is helped you receive, because you genuinely are so grateful for everything that you've been blessed with, despite what some people may have gone down the path of, oh, poor me, why is this happening to me? I'm a single mom, or it's everything's so hard. And I have a child with, that's on the autism spectrum, but like you've always had that isn't life great kind of attitude. And I'm going to live every day as if it's my last kind of thing. And so I think people like that, the universe sends more good stuff to.
Well, to be fair, I haven't always been like that. And there are times in my life where I feel just as, oh my gosh, I can't believe. I don't stay there for very long. But I honestly, even the things that in my life that were not good, like someone might say, oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you. I'm intensely grateful because first of all, they made me who I am today. They showed me my strength, and the gifts in those experiences taught me so much, not only about myself, but about the world and about people. And I think sometimes you have to be taken pretty low to be built back up. And, you talked about me kind of blossoming, and I sort of view myself, I love this line from Shrek, where Shrek talks about ogres being onions and you peel away the layers. And I sort of identify with that. Not that I'm stinky at the core, but but that I feel like the gifts that have come, especially in the last several years, really stepping into those stories that are me and letting people see the real me. Like me or not, I don't really care. I can't control that, but I'm still going to show up and I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to serve people whom I'm meant to serve.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So my finale question is always, what's the bravest thing you've ever done? So I know we've talked about a lot of different things,
Right.
And maybe one of the things we've talked about, but is there anything that you can think of where, you were just in the moment and you just said, okay, I gotta do this. I gotta have courage, and I have to go for it.
That's such a great question. I think there were, I'll share two.
You can share as many as you want.
How long do you have? So I think that there are two, and I think that these are important because they sort of show where I've come from. And so the first kind of brave moment was February 11th, 1975. We were living in Jacksonville, Florida. My dad was deployed, helping and support the Vietnam. So it wasn't a war, but whatever it was. We lived in Florida. Everyone else in our family lived in Pennsylvania. And we came home from school, my brother and I. We had someone drop us off because we went to private school and there were no buses. And my mother was gone. She had packed up all of her things and she had left. There was no note. There was no money. There was very little in the refrigerator. And I hid from the school that we were living alone. I took care of my brother. I took care of our dogs. I arranged carpool rides. I cooked dinner. And I called the base and told them that there was a problem and my dad needed to come home. And he came home 2 days later, 2 full days. He was airlifted. And so that was formative because that was brave. Like I just stepped in and took care of what I needed to take care of. Where it didn't serve me was I ended up caring for other people. My dad wasn't capable of caring for us. So I ended up caring for him. And that's a tough thing to have an 11-year-old kid be in a position to do. So fast forward, I think another one of my second brave moments among the other ones that we've already talked about would have been when I was 17 and I sued my parents to be emancipated. Long story behind that, but I ended up graduating high school and, I had $100 to my name and no car, no job, college admission, no way of paying for it. And I believed in myself so much that and I was very fortunate. I've always been so incredibly blessed with friendships and friends, parents, and families. I'm an extension of all of those families. So I made it because of the people who surrounded me with love and believed in me as well. But that was a really brave decision because I left in an abusive situation, and I knew that I didn't deserve it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that. I know you never know what people have been through, and the courage that they've had to make change. So, but you're on the other side.
I am on the other side, living La Vida Loca.
Walking the Camino.
I'm walking the Camino, kayaking and
kayaking and hiking.
and hiking.
Yeah.
Dancing and
Exactly. Well, I have really enjoyed having a conversation with you, and I know our listeners will too. But I just, if people want to find you on the interwebs, what is the best way for them to find you?
The best way to find me is on my website, because they can contact me via that. And that is www.deborah, DEBORAH, and the last name is Kevin, but looks like Kevin, so KEVIN.com. And they can send me an email that way. They can also find me on Facebook at Deborah Kevin Writer. And I'd love to hear from people.
Good, especially people that have all these thoughts and maybe they're in journals and they need some help getting it pulled together into a book.
Yes.
In some kind of, and have a strategy. And it is, even self-publishing, there are so many steps that you have to go through. And even as a writer or a published author and all those steps, it's still overwhelming.
It's a lot. And it's nice to have somebody who's been through it, but who can also hold you through it. Because as you know, Tracy, having published and getting ready to publish again, the closer you get to release date, the more all those feelings of visibility show up. And it's nice to have somebody to hold your hand through that and to be encouraging. And I'd like to think that I'm really great at that. So
I'm sure you are. All right. Well, thanks. And we will tune in again to the next episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. as much as I did creating it. Each show is produced with you, the listener, in mind, as you look for inspiration and motivation from other brave souls as you pursue your desires. I'd love to hear your feedback, so please leave me a review on iTunes. I read every one. And check out my website, tracym.com, for more free resources. You can also join my list and sign up for my newsletter right from the homepage. Until next time, stay strong, believe in your dreams, and go do something brave.
We appreciate you joining us for this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. and hope that you enjoyed the show. For more information about today's episode, as well as additional free resources to help you achieve greatness in your life, visit tracym.com and sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, dream big, believe in yourself, and let your brilliance shine as only you can do.